Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm going to give you a full review on the Coverage Foundation by The Ordinary. So to cover the basics of this product, The Ordinary put out a full coverage foundation called the Coverage Foundation. It comes in a plastic bottle with a pump, and it also does lock. This foundation comes in 21 shades, which isn't bad. It's not great, like some brands offer 40 different shade options, but for a company that their main focus isn't makeup, their main focus is skincare, it's a lot more than other companies are doing, I think. I purchased this from Ulta. You can only purchase it online, unfortunately, for $6.90, and there's 1 fluid ounce of product in here, so it's a really affordable foundation. So on the box it says this is a high coverage creamy foundation that softens undesirable hues. It doesn't give a long list of claims like a lot of foundations do, which I don't mind. Typically a lot of foundations make so many grandiose claims and it's like, okay, sure, we'll see. It is both cruelty-free and vegan, which is incredible. So to review this foundation, I thought I would switch it up from what I typically do. I'm looking back on the foundation reviews I've done before, and typically they are first impressions, where I try them out for the first time on camera and then wear them throughout the day. But the only thing about that is some foundations perform much differently given what's underneath, what's on top of your makeup, what your skin is dealing with that day. Like, there are so many factors that go into how your foundation looks. So I thought I would try this foundation out for a few days, see what works, what doesn't, what looks best, and then give my review on here to see, can this foundation be worn multiple ways? Does it look good throughout the day after a long day? So I am wearing it today. The way I do this review might be a little bit backwards because I've already put on the foundation and I filmed it, and you're going to see that later in the video. But I first wanted to go through what I did prior to applying this foundation all of the other days. Okay, so the first day I tried it, I just applied the foundation with a sponge. I didn't use a primer. I didn't set it with powder. I didn't use a brush, and it looked amazing. It was not full coverage by any means. Like, it was solid medium. I wouldn't even say high medium, but it looked so beautiful on the skin. Like, no joke. It looked like I wasn't even wearing foundation because it looked so smooth and flawless on the skin. The first day I tried it, I had some active acne going on over here, and it didn't fully cover that up. You could still see the redness coming through, so that's why I say it was only medium coverage. If you're looking for something to cover acne, I'm not sure if this will be the product for you. Maybe. It lasted fine throughout the day. I had normal creasing where I typically do, which is my smile lines and also my forehead, especially when I'm working. I do this a lot, like if I'm concentrating, and that creates lines there with any foundation I have. So I had some creasing there just naturally, but it didn't rub off. It didn't look cakey at the end of the night. It still looked really good by the end of the day. The next day I wanted to see if I could get it to be full coverage, so I applied it with a brush. I use this flat top kabuki brush, which is what I typically use with foundations, and I find that I get much better coverage if I use a brush versus a sponge. However, when I didn't wear any primer under the foundation this day, and I also did not set it with powder, and I did not like it. This foundation is not one that you want to apply with a brush. It looked cakey, kind of dry. My skin was also a little bit dry that day anyway, so that didn't help, but I just didn't really care for it with the brush. It didn't look like disgusting. Like, I would still wear it. It wasn't the most god-awful thing ever, but it was nothing I got excited about, especially when the previous day it looked amazing. So the next day I applied it with a brush, then a sponge over it to kind of blend it out. It looked okay. It looked better than the day when I just used the brush, but it didn't look as good as when I just used the sponge. It did have better coverage, and like, it looked good. I was happy with it. I didn't feel like it looked cakey or just bad on my skin, but I still wanted to see if I could get this foundation to look how it did on the first day. So the next day I tried it with a primer. I used the Essence Fresh and Fit Awake Primer. This gives a really good glow. It's hydrating. And then I applied the foundation with a sponge. Again, it looked very beautiful on the skin, but definitely more of a natural coverage. I couldn't get high coverage like the bottle stated. I also tried setting the foundation with powder, but since it's a glowy, creamy foundation, I don't see myself ever setting it, and it just didn't improve the look of the foundation. It kept looking the same, so there's not really a point in doing that extra step for me. And then the way that I found that this foundation really works for my skin and looks beautiful, feels good, is how I applied it today. Okay, it's looking really good on the rest of my skin. I'm looking very dewy, which I love. I don't have as much redness and active acne going on right now than the other days that I first started using this. I had some breakouts around here that were pretty red and on my jawline over here. So it's hard to give like the most accurate depiction of it because my skin is different than when I first tried this. When I first tried it, it did not look full coverage over acne. Now that it's set down a little bit, I'm going to go in with a light layer, second layer, go over everything, see if we can build up that coverage. Like, it still looks dewy, still looks pretty skin-like. You can tell that I'm wearing makeup, but it's not super obvious. You can definitely tell a little bit more on my forehead. I don't know if I just put too much. Like right here, it's starting to show that it just looks like you can see the makeup settling there. Okay, it's starting to look a little bit better the more I just pounce this on it. So I would have to pick a different shade for this foundation. I thought that the fair with pink undertones was very descriptive of my skin, but it appears to be a little bit too dark. It also looks a little bit orange to me, especially in person, so I don't know if the pink undertone is the best way to describe this foundation, but then again, maybe it's just the way that it looks on my skin. For concealer, I'm going to use the Revolution Fast Base Concealer in C3. I will be setting my under eyes, but I did not really like the way my makeup looked when I did set this foundation. I think it's one I can definitely wear without a powder, and it looks better, and if a powder isn't necessary, I will avoid it. This isn't the most high coverage concealer, but it looks surprisingly natural underneath the eyes, and I want to make sure I don't alter the foundation in any way by applying concealer. To set my under eyes, I'm going to go in with the CYO Fixing Powder and the Tati Beauty face thing. I don't remember, Beauty Puff, I think it's called. I've been using this almost every single day for setting my concealer because it just is so good to get in all those nooks and crannies. And it feels so soft underneath the eye. It doesn't feel like I'm tugging too much. Okay, I'm going to finish up the rest of my makeup. I'm not going to be explaining what I use. I'll probably just fast forward through this part. So if you want to watch it, go ahead. If not, I will put a timestamp on the screen when to skip ahead if you don't want to see me apply my other makeup. very light but hydrating face oil underneath instead of a primer. I applied one layer of the foundation using a sponge, and then I let it set on my skin for about a minute or two, and then I went in with a second layer over top to build up the coverage. And like I said, I do have less to cover than I did the previous days, but I think with that second layer I did get pretty good coverage. I think you can build this foundation up to be full coverage, or at least high medium coverage, if you take the necessary steps to make sure it looks and sets well on your skin. Do a little close up of the foundation. You can definitely tell it's a different shade, but it looks so gorgeous and dewy on the skin. I don't think it looks makeup-y or cakey. Forehead looks pretty good. So all in all, I've really been liking this foundation. Even on the days where it didn't look as good, it still looked pretty good. Like, I think my opinion on some of the days was trying to compare the foundation to how it looked so beautifully natural on the first day. It still looked decent as a foundation with the brush without the hydrating primer. Now at the moment, my skin is pretty much normal with a little bit of dryness here and there, so I don't know how this would perform on oily skin. I used to have oily skin, so I don't know if the creamy, dewy texture of this foundation would just be too much and it would really emphasize the oils. You would probably need to set it with a powder if you do have really oily skin. But if you have normal or dry skin, maybe even combination skin, I think this foundation could work. It's pretty affordable, and another thing I really like about it is the bottle. You can screw off the cap and like scoop out the excess foundation, because I hate foundation bottles where they just prevent you from getting the last bit of foundation in there. Like, they really attach that cap so it can't just be easily screwed off. And you know that there is a bunch of foundation sitting in the bottom of that bottle that the straw cannot get to, but you can also not get to it. Because I'm a person that is cutting up tubes of primers and foundations to scoop out that last bit of product. I think that is about all. I will have everything I used on my face linked in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support. If you would like to, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel. I would truly appreciate it. I really appreciate every single view, like, comment, etc. So thank you for your support, and I will hopefully see you in my next video.